Okay, so the promise of a smooth career, which my first calm introduction to Thornfield Hall seemed to pledge, was not belied on a longer acquaintance with the people and its inmates. Miss Fairfax turned out to be what she appeared, a placid-tempered, kind-natured woman of competent education and average intelligence. My pupil was a lively child who had been spoiled and indulged, and therefore was sometimes wayward, but as she was committed entirely to my care and no injudicious interference from any quarter ever thwarted my plans for her improvement, she soon forgot her little freaks and became obedient and teachable. She had no great talents, no marked traits of character, no peculiar development of feeling or taste which raised her 1 inch above the ordinary level of childhood, but neither had she any deficiency or vice which sunk her below it. She made reasonable progress, entertained for a vivacious, though perhaps not very profound, affection, and by her simplicity, gay prattle, and efforts to please, she inspired me, in return, with a degree of attachment sufficient to make us both content in each other's society. I love Jane, but she is she's so dead ass sometimes. She's so frank, like just so okay. Miss Fairfax isn't stupid, and Adele is just a little kid who's nice enough. Like, I can't complain. She's so straightforward. This parentheses will be thought cool language by persons who entertain solemn doctrines about the angelic nature of children and the duty of those charged with their education to conceive for them an idolatrous devotion. But I'm not writing to flatter paternal egotism, to echo cant, or prop up humbug. I'm merely telling the truth. Exactly. I was like, damn, that's so like, she's so matter of fact, but she's telling the truth. I felt a conscientious solitude for Adele's welfare and progress, solicitude for Adele's welfare and progress, and a quiet liking to her little self, just as I cherished towards Mrs. Fairfax a thankfulness for her kindness and a pleasure in her society proportionate to the tranquil regard she had for me and the moderation of her mind and character. Anybody may blame me who likes when I add further that now and again, when I took a walk by myself in the grounds, when I went down to the gates and looked through them along the road, or when Adele played with her nurse and Mrs. Fairfax made jellies in the storeroom, I climbed the staircase, raised the trapdoor of the attic, and having reached the leads, looked out afar over sequestered field. My girl Jane want to be free, but when she looked out far over the sequestered fields and hill along the dim skyline, that then I longed for a power of vision which might overpass that limit, which might reach to the busy world, towns and regions full of life, which I'd heard of but never seen. I desired more of a practical experience than I possessed, more of intercourse with my kind, of acquaintance with variety of character than was here within my reach. I valued what was good in Mrs. Fairfax's and what was good in Adele, but I believed in the existence of other and more vivid kinds of goodness, and what I believed in I wished to behold. Who blames me? Nobody. Nobody blame you. Nobody blame you, girl. Embracing a child at 18 and by yourself in the house. Many, no doubt, and I shall be called disconnected. I cannot help it. The restlessness was in my nature. It agitated me to pain sometimes. That my sole relief was to walk along the corridor of the 3rd story, backwards and forwards, safe in the silence and solitude of that spot, and allow my mind's eye to dwell on whatever bright visions rose before it. And certainly there were many glowing to let my heart be heaved by the exultant movement, which, while it swelled it in trouble, expanded with life, and best of all, to open my inward ear to the tale which never ended, a tale my imagination created and narrated continuously, quickened with all of incident, life, fire, feeling that I desired and had not in my actual existence. That sentence That sentence is this long. I'm not even kidding. Okay, it is no vain. It is in vain to say human beings ought to be satisfied with tranquility. They must have action, and they will make it if they cannot find it. Millions are condemned to a stiller doom than mine, and millions are in silent revolt against their lot. Nobody knows how many rebellions besides political rebellions ferment in the masses of life which people earth. Women are supposed to be very calm generally, but women feel just as men feel. They need exercise for their faculties and a field for their efforts as much as their brothers do. They suffer from too rigid a constraint, too absolute a stagnation, precisely as men would suffer. And it is narrow minded in their more privileged fellow creatures to say that they ought to combine themselves to make puddings and knit stockings, to play on the piano and embroider bags. It is thoughtless to condemn them or laugh at them if they seek to do more or learn more than custom has permitted. When thus alone, I not unfrequently heard Grace Poole's laugh, the same peal, the same low, slow ha ha, which when I first heard it had thrilled me. I heard too her eccentric murmurs, stranger than her laugh. There were days when she was quite silent, but there were others when she would not account for the sound she made. Sometimes I saw her, and she would come out of her room with the basin or plate or a tray in her hand, or go down to the kitchen and shortly return. Generally, oh romantic reader, forgive me for telling the plain truth, bearing a pot of porter. Oh, okay. Grace liked to drink. Whatever. Okay. Her appearance always acted as a damper to the curiosity raised by her oral oddities. Hard feature and staid, she had no point to which interest could attach. I made some attempts to draw her into conversation, but she seemed a person of few words. A monosyllabic reply usually cut short every effort of that sort. The other members of the household, John and his wife, Leah the housemaid, and Sophie the nurse, were decent people, but in no respect remarkable. With Sophie, I used to talk French, and sometimes I asked her questions about her native country, but she was not of a descriptive or narrative turn, and generally gave such vapid, and confused answers as were calculated rather to check than encourage inquiry. October, November, December passed away. One afternoon in January, Mrs. Fairfax had begged a holiday for Adele because she had a cold, and Adele seconded the request within our door that reminded me how precious occasional holidays had been to me in my own childhood. I accorded it, deeming that I did well in showing pliability on the point. It was a fine, calm day, though very cold. I was tired of sitting still in the library, though a whole long morning. Mrs. Fairfax had just written a letter which was waiting to be posted, so I put on my bonnet and cloak and volunteered to carry it to the hay. The distance, 2 miles. It would be a pleasant winter afternoon walk. Having seen Adele comfortably seated in her little chair by Mrs. Fairfax's parlor fireside, and given her best wax doll, which I usually kept enveloped in silver paper in a drawer, to play with, and a storybook for change of amusement, and having replied to her, "I'll be back, ma chérie," basically. She said, "I love you." And she said it in French. I can't read French. With the kiss, Jane was out. Okay, she about to meet her man, finally. Damn. The ground was hard. The air was still. My road was lonely. I walked fast till I got warm, and then I walked slowly to enjoy and analyze the species of pleasure brooding for me in the hour and situation. It was 3 o'clock. The church bell tolled, and I passed under the belfry. The charm of the hour lay. Okay, you know she liked nature. She described me the scene. Anyways, I was a mile from Thornfield, in a lane noted for wild roses in summer, for nuts and blackberries in autumn, and even now possessing a few coral treasures in hips and haws, but whose best winter delight lay in utter solitude and leafless repose. Wish I had somebody to pronounce these words. If a breath of air stirred, it made no sound here, for there was not a holly, not an evergreen to rustle, and the stripped hawthorn and hazel bushes were as still as the white worn stones which causewayed the middle of the path. Far and wide on each side there were only fields where no cattle now browsed, and the little brown birds which stirred occasionally in the hedge looked like single russet leaves that had forgotten a drop. This lane inclined uphill all the way to the hay,
Having reached the middle, I sat down on a stile which led thence into a field. Gathering my mantle around me and sheltering my hands in muff, I did not feel the cold, though it froze keenly, as was attested by a sheet of ice covering the causeway, where a little brooklet, now congealed, had overflowed after a rapid thaw some days since. From my seat, I could look down on Thorfield. The gray and battlemented hall was the principal object in the vale below me. Its woods and dark rookery rose against the west. I lingered till the sun went down amongst the trees and sank crimson and clear behind them, and then turned eastward. On the hill, she'd be enjoying her freedom. Just outside the house, she just happy to be outside. On the hilltop above me, the rising moon, pale yet as a cloud, but brightening momently, she looked over hay, which half lost in trees sent up a blue smoke from its few chimneys. It was yet a mile distant, but in the absolute hush I could hear plainly its thin murmurs of life. My ear too felt the flow of currents, in what dales and depths I could not tell, but there were many hills beyond hay, and doubtless many becks threading their passes. That evening calm betrayed alike the tinkle of the near streams and so of the most remote. A rude noise broke on these fine ripplings and whisperings, at once so far away and so clear, a positive tramp, a metallic clutter which evaded the soft weave wanderings as in a picture. The solid mass of crag or the rough boles of the great oak, drawn in dark and strong on the foreground, effaced the aerial distance of azure hill, sunny horizon, and blended clouds, where tint melts into tint. Descriptive. Okay, the den was on the causeway, and a horse was coming. The windings of the lane yet hid it, but I read ahead again. Jane is being very descriptive. I love you. She's on the field. Not on the field. She's on this lane. She's sitting, enjoying the view, and hears a noise. She knows that a horse is coming down the lane, but she can't see it yet. In her imaginative mind, she starts to think about stories from her childhood that Bessie told her, and she starts to imagine that the sound and that she's hearing is like a goblin, like a fairy tale story that they used to tell the kids back then. I'm gonna sum that up because okay. She also sees Pilot, Mr. Rochester's dog. So I'm gonna pick up right there. I heard a rush under the hedge, and close down by the hazel stems glided a great dog, whose black and white color made him a distinct object against the trees. It was exactly like Bessie's guy trash, a lion-like creature with long hair and a huge head. It passed me, however, quietly enough, not staying to look up, with strange canine eyes in my face, as I half expected it would. The horse followed, a tall steed, and on its back a rider. The man, the human being, broke the spell at once. Nothing ever rode the guy trash. It was always alone, and goblins, to my notions, though they might tenant the dumb carcasses of beasts, could scarce covet shelter in the commonplace human form. No guy trash was this, only a traveler taking the shortcut to Millcote. He passed and I went on, a few steps, and I turned, a sliding sound and an exclamation of "What the deuce is it to do now?" and a clattering tumble attested my attention. Okay, what the deuce is to do now, or what the fuck, but anyways. And a clattering tumble of arrested my attention. Man and horse were down. They had slipped on a sheet of ice which glazed the causeway. The dog came bounding back, and seeing his master in a predicament and hearing the horse groan, barked till the evening hills echoed the sound, which was steep in proportion to his magnitude. He snuffed round the prostrate group, and then he ran up to me. It was all he could do. It made me think of Nala. There was no other help at hand to summon. I obeyed him and walked down to the traveler. At least he tried to get some help, his daddy, by this time struggling himself free of his steed. His efforts were so vigorous, I thought he could not be much hurt, but I asked him the question. "Are you injured, sir?" I think he was swearing, but I'm not certain. She don't even know if he cussing or not. He cussing. Are you injured, sir? I think he was swearing, but I'm not certain. However, he was pronouncing some formula which prevented him from replying to me directly. Can I do anything? I asked again. You must just stand on one side, he answered as he rose, first to his knees, then to his feet. I did, whereupon began a heaving, stamping, clattering process, accompanied by a barking and bang, which removed me effectually some yards distance, but I would not be driven quite away until I saw the event. This was finally fortunate. The horse was reestablished and the dog was silenced with the down pilot. The traveler, now stooping, felt his foot and leg as if trying whether they were sound. Apparently something ailed them, for he halted to the stile whence I had just risen and sat down. I was in the mood for being useful, or at least officious, I think, for I now drew near to him. If you are help and want help, sir, I can fetch someone from either Thornfield Hall or from Hay. Thank you, I shall do. I have no broken bones, only a sprain. And again he stood up and tried his foot, but the result extorted an involuntary groan. Something of daylight still lingered, and the moon was waxing bright. I could see him plainly. His figure was enveloped in a riding coat, fur-collared and steel claps. Its details were not apparent, but I traced the general points of middle height and considerable breadth of chest. He had a dark face with stern features and a heavy brow. His eyes and gathered eyebrows looked ireful and thwarted just now. He was past youth, but he had not reached middle age. Perhaps he might be 35. I felt no fear of him. Dang, he double-aged. I just thought about that. Okay, I felt no fear of him, but a little shyness. Had he been a handsome, heroic-looking young gentleman, I should not have dared to stand thus questioning him against his will and offering my services unasked. I had hardly ever seen a handsome youth, never in my life spoken to one. How you know if he handsome or not? Like, if he doing it for you, he got a wide chest, heavy brow, stern features. Never in my life spoken to one. I had a theoretical reverence and homage for beauty, elegance, gallantry, fascination, but I had met those qualities incarnate in masculine shape. I should have known instinctively that they neither had nor could have sympathy with anything in me, and should have shunned them as one would fire, lightning, or anything else that is bright but antipathetic. I'm gonna look that up. Anyways, I have to process that. So, upon further review, that word means a strong feeling of dislike. So, I guess pyros like fire, but no one likes fire. No one likes lightning, but it is something to behold, basically. You avoid it, though. You don't touch it. So she's like, look, but don't touch. Men. Okay. If ever this stranger had smiled and been good-humored to me when I addressed him, if he had put off my offer of assistance gaily and with thanks, I should have gone on my way and not felt any vocation to renew inquiries. But the frown, the roughness of the traveler set me at ease. I retained my station when he waved for me to go and announced, I cannot think of leaving you, sir, at so late an hour, and this solitary lane till I see you are fit to mount your horse. He looked at me when I said this. He had hardly turned his eyes in my direction before. I should think you ought to be at home yourself, said he. If you have a home in this neighborhood, where do you come from? From just below, and I'm not at all afraid of being out late when it is moonlight. I will run over to Hay for you with pleasure, if you wish it. Indeed, I am going there to post a letter. You live just below. Do you mean at the house with the battlements, pointing to Thornfield Hall, on which the moon cast a hoary gleam, bringing it out distinct and pale from the woods? That, by contrast, was the western sky, now seemed one mass of shadow. I'm not standing in the woods of England with no random me. Okay, yes, sir. Whose house is it? Mr. Rochester's. Do you know Mr. Rochester? No, I've never seen him. He's not a resident, then? No. Can you tell me where he is? I cannot. You're not a servant at the hall, of course. You are... He stopped, ran his eye over my dress, which, as usual, was quite simple. A black cloak, a black beaver bonnet. Neither of them half fine enough for a lady's maid. He seemed puzzled to decide what I was. I helped him. I'm the governess. Ah, the governess, he repeated. Deuce take me if I had not forgotten the governess. And again, my raiment underwent scrutiny. Okay. In 2 minutes, he rose from the stile. His face expressed pain when he tried to move. I cannot commission you to fetch help, he said, but you may help me a little yourself if you will be so kind. Yes, sir. You've not an umbrella that I can use as a stick? No, sir. You would try to get hold of my horse's bridle and lead him to me. You're not afraid. I should have been afraid to torch the horse when alone. Horses are huge. Okay. I should have been afraid to torch a horse when alone, but when told to do it, I was disposed to obey. I put down my muff on the stile and went to the tall steed. I like Jean because she's the type of person where you tell her to do something and she ain't gonna let you think she can't do it. She gonna get the horse. Okay, she got the horse. She brings the horse over to she brings the tall steed over. She tries to catch the bridle, but it was a spirited thing and would not let me come near its head. I made effort on effort, though in vain. Meantime, I was mortally afraid of its trampling 4 feet. The traveler waited and watched for some time, and at last he laughed. I see, he said. The mountain will never be brought to Muhammad, so all you can do is aid Muhammad to go to the mountain. I must beg you to come here. I came. Excuse me, he continued. Necessity compels me to make you useful. He laid a heavy hand on my shoulder and, leaning on me with some stress, limped to his horse. Having once caught the bridle, he mastered it directly and sprang onto his saddle, grimacing grimly as he made an effort for it wretch to spring. Now, said he, releasing his underlip from a hard bite, just hand me my whip. It lies under the hedge. I sought it and found it. Thank you. Now make haste with the letter to hay and return as fast as you can. A touch of a spurred hill made the horse first start and rear and then bound away. The dog rushed in his traces. All 3 vanished. Like heath that, in the wilderness, the wild wind rolls away. I took up my muff and walked on. The incident had occurred and was gone from me. It was an incident of no moment, no romance, no entrance, in a sense, yet it marked with change 1 single hour of monotonous life. Okay, she ain't thinking about it. Cute, because I always wondered. I was like, did you really? Yeah. Okay, so it wasn't really important to her. My help had been needed and claimed. I'd given it. I was pleased to have done something trivial, transitionary though the deed was, and it was yet an active thing, and I was weary of an existence all passive. The new face, too, was like a new picture introduced to the gallery of memory, and it was dissimilar to all the others hanging there. Firstly, because it was masculine, and secondly, because it was dark, strong, and stern. I had it still before me when I entered Hay and slipped the letter into the post office. I saw it and walked fast downhill all the way home. When I came to the stile, I stopped a minute, looked round and listened with the idea that a horse's hoofs might ring on the causeway again, and that a rider in a cloak and a guitrish like Newfoundland dog might be again apparent. I saw only the hedge and a willow before me, rising up still and straight to meet the moonbeams. I heard only the faintest waft of wind roaming fitful among the trees round Thornfield, a mile distant, and when I glanced down in the direction of the murmur, my eye, traversing the hall front, caught a light kindling on a window. It reminded me that I did not like re-entering Thornfield. To pass its threshold was to return to stagnation. To cross the silent hill, to ascend the darksome staircase, to seek my own lonely little room, and then to meet tranquil Miss Fairfax and spend the long winter evening with her, and her only, was to quell wholly the faint excitement weakened by my walk, to slip again over my faculties the viewless fetters of a uniform and too still an existence, of an existence whose very privileges of security and ease I was becoming incapable of appreciating. I hate that. Like when you wish for something and it's better than what you had, and you trying to be grateful for it, but like it's still not what you want. Like she's making more money, she's out of Lola, still ain't happy, she bored. I wore too. Okay, what good it would have done me at that time to have been tossed into the storms of an uncertain, struggling life, and to have been taught by rougher and bitter experience to long for the calm, amidst which now I repine. Yes, just as much good as it would do a man tired of sitting still in a too easy chair to take a long walk, and just as natural was the wish to stir under my circumstances as it would be under his. I lingered at the gates. I lingered on the lawn. I paced backwards and forwards on the pavement. The shutters of the glass door were closed. I could not see into the interior, and both my eyes and spirit seemed drawn from the gloomy house, from the gray hollow field with rayless cells, as it appeared to me, to the sky expanded before me, a blue sea absolved from taint of cloud, the moon ascending it solemn march, in a solemn march. Her orb seemed to be looking up as she left the hilltops, from behind with which she came, far and further below her, and aspired to the zenith, midnight dark in its fathomless depth and measureless distance. And for those trembling stars that followed her course, they made my heart tremble, my veins glow when I viewed them. Little things recall us to earth. The clock struck in the hall. That sufficed. I turned from the moon and stars, opened a side door, and went in. The hall was not dark, nor yet was it lit, only by the high-hung bronze lamp. A warm glow suffused both it and the lower steps of the oak staircase. This ruddy shine issued from the great dining room, whose two-leaved door stood open and showed a genial fire in the grate, glancing on marble hearth and brass fire irons, and revealing purple draperies and polished furniture, and the most pleasant radiance. It revealed, too, a group near the mantelpiece. I scarcely caught it, and scarcely become aware of cheerful mingling voices, amongst which I seemed to distinguish the tones of a... Okay, she's just putting that two and two together, that something's changed. Okay. I hastened to Mrs. Fairfax's room. There was a fire there, too, but no candle, and no Mrs. Fairfax. Instead, all alone, sitting upright on the rug and gazing with gravity at the blaze, beheld a great black and white long-haired dog, just like the one on the lane. It was so like it that I went forward and said, "Pilot." And the thing got up and came to me and snuffed me. I caressed him and he wagged his gray tail, but he looked like an eerie creature to be alone with. Hell yeah, I'm with a dog. And that's whence he had come. I rang the bell, for I wanted a candle, and I wanted to get an account of the visitant. Leah entered. Whose dog is this? He came with master. With whom? With master, Mr. Rochester. He's just arrived. Indeed, and is Miss Fairfax with him? Yes, and Miss Adela. They're in the dining room, and John is gone for a surgeon, for master has had an accident. His horse fell, and his ankle is sprained. Did the horse fall in Hay Lane? Yes, coming down the hill. I don't know why Jane, this smart, she's so smart. Why is you acting like you don't know? How many people they got coming down the damn lane with the same dog? Anyway, she asked for a candle, and with that, the surgeon had come and was now with Mr. Rochester. Then she hurried out to give orders about tea, and I went upstairs to take off my things. Okay, I didn't realize that the chapter ended. So, chapter 13.